So Michael Steele says, what's the phrase? Crap show.
Crap show.
Yeah, that's hard.
I was fascinated by that conversation that you just had, because I think you're onto something that I think is a bigger conversation that we need to have that isn't really just about the Republicans. Like, are we at the end of politics? Because, you know, it is a really brilliant point that the Republican Party exists in a world in which demographically 6 out of the 7 last presidential elections, they can't win the popular vote. Because demographically and the dispersion of multiracial communities makes it very hard for them to win through conventional politics. The things they want to do, ban abortion, highly unpopular. When you put it through politics, you put it through an election, they can't win that. The things they want to do on guns, 70-some-odd% of Americans don't agree with it. So they have to force these things through anti-democratic means. Voter suppression is the only way. Gerrymandering is the only way they can actually get what they want, because what they want is so unpopular that when you put their ideas through the political process, they can't win. And the frustration and the rage, not being able to ban all immigrants and get all the quote-unquote illegals out. You can't do it, right? Because logistically it's impossible. It's also unpopular, ruins businesses in Florida. So if you think about it, all of politics has enraged a certain group of Americans who cannot win through politics. And so what do? You go to autocracy.
You need a non-political process.
Right, and I'm not sure that Democrats have an answer. Biden's going to give this big speech on democracy tomorrow. I'm not sure that Democrats and Biden have an answer to what do you do when something like 40% of American adults have given up on politics and say politics isn't the answer. Give me a strong man who can impose my minority positions on the rest of you, on women. We're going to make women give birth. We're going to make you do it. Because you don't want to do it, and politics won't allow me to make you do it. I mean, how do we solve for this? This is actually a fundamental problem.
Okay, but they're not participating in politics and policy in the same way that Fox News is no longer covering news or politics. It's grievance media. And this takes us back to who was standing behind Donald Trump, who was the mastermind behind his first campaign. It was Steve Bannon, who very clearly said, let's just break the system. Right. And that's what they're doing.
Well, and the media hasn't figured it out either. Let's just be honest. The mainstream media, Fox set them aside. They're just the Republican Party's voice.
You mean those of us complaining about Joe Biden's sneakers?
This is what I'm saying. The media can't figure out how to do something other than conventional politics from like the 90s. And so they're like, both sides, both sides, both sides. If we say Donald Trump is corrupt, well, we must cover Hunter Biden equally. If we say, you know, we have to even Steven it, we have to find something to say because we have to say Trump is corrupt. We have to say Trump is violent. So let's talk about the sneakers. Biden is old. They're the same age, but we act as if Biden's age is equal to Donald Trump's threat. And the media hasn't figured out how to do this either. So it's like the whole system is busted. And I honestly don't think the media has an answer for it. I don't think Democrats have an answer. They're going to do a campaign, right? A regular campaign against that.
I think part of the problem, just to go back to the root origin of this, is like if you look at what's happening in Washington right now, it's officially the day of the first impeachment hearing, I guess, right now, and the government's about to shut down in 2 days. Basically, Kevin McCarthy, like him, don't like him, think he's flipped around on many issues he has no idea what to do either. Right. He's also befuddled on how to control his own party, because to go back to the root point here, their party, the core powerful people in that party, their agenda is to shut it down, to burn the House down. They're not debating policy issues, just like they were asked policy questions tonight, a lot of them, and they didn't want to answer them. They want to burn it down. They want government to not function. That's their agenda. So it's like negotiating with not a terrorist, but someone like that. Like it's not somebody you should be negotiating with. That's the challenge.
Listen, I will just make one quick point on this and then go to you, Chris. I would just say that there is something to be said for President Biden's approach to talk about the problem, right? Him giving a speech on democracy right now is a good idea.
Yes.
Because what happens when you are having people in your polity, right, in your political world who are trying to say, we don't want politics anymore, we don't want a democratic process, we don't want any kind of governing process at all, we want to impose what we know is right for this country because we're the only real citizens, and therefore our will should just be imposed.
Right.
The way you fight that is by standing up and saying, no, we still need politics. Mm-hmm. No, actually, a democracy is the way we solve the problems that we have. And actually, we ought to stand up for the kind of system of government that we've got. There isn't a way to fight fire with fire if what you are fighting against is people who are saying, I want force and violence and war as a way of settling things. Once we've got violence and political intimidation in our political system, it makes it very hard to do politics. Yeah. And so you need to argue to get violence and intimidation out of the system. And there's no way to do it except through democracy. Democracy is a process. It's not an end.
I totally agree. And I think the thing that I was going to say is that I thought the midterms were sort of a blueprint, right? I mean, the midterms, they tried to call the question at an existential level about democracy and try to assemble what I think is a tenuous but extant and durable pro-democracy majority among the American electorate. Yeah. A kind of popular front from, Bill Kristol and Noam Chomsky, basically, that is in favor of continuing the American constitutional republic in a recognizable self-governing form, which is it really is the question. It's very hard to keep telling people this. It's like, this is the question being called, which is that, like, Donald Trump wants to end it. Like, we were talking tonight about the Milley comments. It's not just the Milley comments. I mean, they've been very explicit. This is a thing, right? You see in places that are falling apart democratically, who are the security forces loyal to, right? He's explicitly saying he wants loyal security forces. He wants to get rid of disloyal security forces. He does not like officers of the United States Armed Forces who are loyal to the Constitution over him. He wants to replace them with lackeys for him. He is mad at them because they wouldn't undertake the coup. It's all very explicit about what he's promising and what he's doing. And ultimately, the only solution, the only thing we really have right at our disposal is assembling this pro-democracy majority once again. There are legal remedies, right? He's maybe going to be convicted. There's talk about the 14th Amendment. But, he's probably going to stand for office as the nominee, and ultimately it's going to just be up to assembling that majority again.
And that desire to have governing, to get rid of governing and to have that kind of force deciding how things go in the United States. It is a recurring problem in our country. Yeah. This is not the first time that we have ever felt it. And Jim Crow was a form of fascism, the kind of fascism we had here in advance of World War II with Americans who wanted to side with the Axis, which is the thing that I've been working on for a long time. That was part of it, too. We have dealt with this recurring problem in our country before. We can learn from people who have dealt with it in the past. But there's no way through it except through it. You have to confront it for what it is.
But what keeps me up at night is that when you talk to people, and Stephanie, I think we talk about this probably more than anyone else, there are people who are so frustrated by politics that are not Trumpies. They're not fascists. But they say, yeah, but every 4 years you tell me I have to vote and my student loans are still killing me. My rent is still killing me. I still can't afford health care. I've got Obamacare. It's still expensive. It's still hard for me to actually live, especially younger people who are getting more and more cynical. And this is the generation that are not getting more conservative as they get older. They want LGBTQ folks to have their rights. They don't want to ban, trans surgery. They're for it. They want a more pluralistic, liberal world, but they're also frustrated with politics.
They're not excited to vote.
They're not excited to vote. And so but we keep telling them, and I'm the auntie that's always like, Auntie Joy, keep telling you have to vote, and you have to keep doing, you have to do it on the local level, you have to vote in school board. But we keep telling them that the only answer to fix this autocratic movement is politics. And when they say, but the politics takes long, doesn't get me where I want, and isn't making my rent lower, and isn't making food cheaper, it's very difficult to keep them on the train.
And part of standing up for democracy, though, is making sure that people's needs and what people articulate as their wants are made manifest by the representative government that we vote for.
That's right.
That is part of what it is, not just to make this country great, but it's to make democracy work and to answer that existential question.